It was a typical Tuesday. Hannah stood at the school gates, checking her watch. As usual, she was there to collect her 7-year-old son, Jamal, and her neighbor's daughter, Maya. The two families had an unspoken pact. Hannah did the pickups, and Sarah, Maya's mother, watched the kids in the evenings while Hannah finished her shifts at the clinic. Just as the school bell rang, a sleek red motorbike pulled up to the curb. The rider removed his helmet, revealing a friendly, suntanned face. Strapped to the back seat, wearing a tiny matching helmet, was a boy no older than 5. He called the little girl by her name. He said, "Maya, come here." "Excuse me. Are you Hannah?" the man asked, smiling warmly. Hannah blinked, surprised. "Yes, I am." "All right," Hannah said, though a small knot remained in her stomach. "Maya. Over here, sweetie." Maya skipped over, eyes widening at the bright red bike. "I get to ride the motorcycle?" "Just this once," Hannah said, helping the girl clip on a spare helmet Mark provided. "Go straight to your mom, okay?"
As the red motorbike roared away and disappeared around the corner, Hannah grabbed Jamal's hand. Something felt off. It wasn't what the man said, but what he didn't say. He hadn't mentioned Sarah's broken wrist, something Sarah had been complaining about for 3 days. Hannah pulled out her phone and dialed Sarah. "Hey, did Maya get there yet?" Hannah asked, her voice trembling. "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice came through the line, accompanied by the whirring of a sewing machine. "I'm waiting for you to drop her off like usual." The world seemed to tilt. "The man on the red bike, Aisel? He said you sent him." "Aisel. Hannah, I don't know anyone named Aisel with a red bike. Call the police, now." The school courtyard, usually filled with the sounds of laughter, was now heavy with tension. Hannah paced back and forth as the police lined up the students. "Look closely, Hannah," the lead detective said. "Is the boy who was on the bike, the one he claimed was his son, among these children?" Hannah walked down the line. She looked at every face, every uniform, but something was wrong. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He's not here." The boy on the bike was wearing a blue school apron with distinct red buttons. None of these children are wearing that. The detective frowned. "That's unusual. That specific apron isn't the standard uniform for this district." As they moved toward the school gates, the local mechanic, who had been listening to the commotion, stepped forward. "Detective," the mechanic said, scratching his chin. "You said it was a red Peugeot motorbike? That's strange. Peugeot didn't make that specific model in red that year. They were always blue. If that bike was red, it was a fresh, amateur paint job likely done to hide its real identity." Near the entrance sat an old man, his small wooden cart filled with colorful candies. He had been a fixture at the school for 30 years. He squinted through thick glasses as the police approached. "I saw him," the old man rasped. "He stood right here, next to my cart. He asked me to keep an eye on his bike for just a minute. He said he had to grab his son from the side entrance. He went toward the nursery wing and came back with a little boy in a blue apron." The old man leaned in closer to the detective. "I didn't like his eyes. They were restless. But he paid me a coin to watch the bike. If I see that man again, I'll recognize the way he walks. He had a slight limp in his right leg, as if he'd fallen off that bike more than once." The tension in the investigation had reached a breaking point. For 4 agonizing days, the trail had gone cold, and Maya's mother, Sarah, was drowning in the darkest fears a parent can have. Then came the phone call. A gardener had found a small girl sitting upright in a chair in the middle of a quiet public park. Maya was alive, but she was a shadow of the girl who had skipped toward that red motorbike. She sat in the hospital bed, silenced by trauma, her eyes wide and unblinking. Outside the hospital, forensic teams scrambled. On the soft dirt of the garden where she was found, They discovered the unmistakable tread marks of a Peugeot motorbike. The breakthrough didn't come from high-tech surveillance, but from the old candy cellar. He shuffled into the precinct with a determined look. "I saw him again," he told the lead officer. "Not the bike, but the man. He was talking to a friend, a man I recognize. He's a cleaner at the local public bathhouse, Moroccan Hammam." The police rushed to the bathhouse, but the suspect had already fled, moving to a different bathhouse across town. When they finally tracked down his former boss, the report was chilling. His conduct was unpredictable. You couldn't expect much better from him. Using the ID photo provided by the bathhouse manager, the police tracked the suspect to a small, isolated shack on the outskirts of town. They burst through the door, and the scene inside confirmed their every suspicion. The bike, the Peugeot, was no longer red. It had been completely disassembled, the parts scattered across the floor, and the frame was half covered in a fresh, sticky coat of white paint. The evidence: a blue school apron with red buttons lay discarded in a corner. "We found the girl," the detective growled. "Now tell us the truth. Who is the boy?" The man let out a jagged laugh, looking toward the disassembled white bike. "The boy? He wasn't mine. I brought my nephew because a woman will never run from a man holding a child's hand. I put him in that blue apron with the red buttons to make him look like a good student. I made myself look like a father so I could walk right up to Elena and lie to her face. I didn't just choose her randomly," the man confessed, his voice cold and calculated. "I worked at the bathhouse near the tailor shop. Every day, I watched the mothers. I watched how they lived. I saw Sarah, the tailor. She was always busy, always hunched over her machine, always stressed." He looked up, a twisted glint in his eye. "I heard her. She would call out to neighbors, to Elena, to anyone passing by. 'Can you bring Maya? I'm stuck here with a deadline.' She was asking for help, and I decided that one day I would be the one to answer." The police now had everything they needed: the ID from the bathhouse, the witness testimony from the candy cellar, the disassembled white bike, and most importantly, the man's own confession. As they led him out of the room in shadows, the lead detective went to the hospital. He didn't have words to fix what had happened, but he had a message for Sarah and Elena. The man on the red bike would never see the sun as a free man again. He was sentenced to 15 years of prison.